Hello and welcome to WION Live Broadcast. I'm Ollie Barrett in London and these are the headlines. India's PM Modi says he's committed to improving India-Japan ties a day ahead of the crucial Quad summit in Tokyo. PM Modi meets top Japanese business leaders and the Indian diaspora.
This is a very important aspect of India's engagement with
As leaders assemble in the Japanese capital, WION's bringing you analysis from experts and our team on the ground. US President Joe Biden launches a new Asia-Pacific trade initiative in Tokyo with 13 countries including India and Japan. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky addresses the World Economic Forum virtually, and he urges maximum sanctions on Russia at the meeting of business leaders in Davos. A Kiev court hands a 21-year-old Russian soldier a life sentence for war crimes in the first verdict against Moscow's forces since their invasion into Ukraine. We'll start in Davos, where the World Economic Forum annual meeting is underway for the first time in 2 years. After the pandemic-enforced gap, billionaires, business leaders, gurus, political leaders and activists have gathered to talk finance, the economy, the war in Ukraine, among other issues. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has joined the summit via a video link.
Peaceful order in the world with the maximum efforts possible. This is what the sanctions should be. There should be maximum, so that Russia and every other potential aggressor who wants to wage a brutal war against its neighbor would clearly know the immediate consequences for their actions. And I believe there's still no such sanctions against Russia. And there should be Russian oil embargo. All the Russian banks should be blocked. No exceptions. There should be an abandonment of the Russian IT sector. There should not be any trade with Russia. This should be a precedent for sanctions pressure that will work convincingly for the decades to come and would support the peace. It is necessary to set a precedent for the complete withdrawal of all foreign businesses from the Russian market, so that your brands would not be associated with war crimes, so that your offices, bills and goods were not used by the war criminals in their bloody interests. Values must matter, particularly when a full-scale war begins and the global markets are becoming destabilized, because someone there is simply neglecting the values.
Well, I'm joined now by WION's business editor, Sumit Chaturvedi, and Sumit is joining us live from Davos. Sumit, tell us about the key issues so far at Davos on those less snowy hills than usual.
Well, the biggest thing right now we are seeing is Russia-Ukraine war. The world is clearly quite disturbed by what is the overall future looks like as far as the conflict is concerned. We heard President Zelensky of Ukraine talking about how the world should put more pressure on Russia, economic pressure, how oil trade should stop completely. There shouldn't have been trade at all with Russia. So going forward, what is the outcome of this conflict? That is something which is disturbing everyone. It is something which is keeping the overall markets stock market's volatile, economy is volatile. That is the key focus here. We came here 2 days ago, and since then we have seen a number of discussions. What is the future of this conflict is leading to oil which is disturbing overall economies. The costly oil is disturbing the mathematics of economies across the world. Also supply chain issues and many of the issues that are coming here. We also are here 2 years after corona pandemic stuck nearly. So that is why it's a big time for everyone. They have gathered here. They are once again discussing what the overall recovery looks like. So recovery is one of the main themes here. Economic recovery I'm talking about in the post-corona world, and Russia-Ukraine war, which is clearly disturbing people here. What is the CEOs, policymakers they're discussing, where it is going? That is another thing. Climate change, clearly we are in Davos at a time when there is no snow. Generally it is not like that. From -30 or -25, we are here at the positive +25. So that is a sea change as far as temperatures are concerned. But on the other hand, on the sidelines, the climate change is a big issue which everyone is discussing. Companies here, they are contributing, they're planning to contribute a lot to the carbon neutrality of the planet. So all these discussions are happening here. These are the key themes.
Okay, Sumit, and what about the summit itself? Because at times it's been criticised over the years for various things. How many world leaders do we expect to see turning up? Obviously, we saw President Zelensky addressing the WEF virtually earlier, but do we expect a big attendance from world leaders? And if not, is Davos struggling to stay relevant?
This time, well, the temperatures have changed. Clearly, the overall atmosphere here has also changed. Many couldn't come because of the COVID-19 restrictions or maybe apprehensions we can talk about, or maybe they're so busy with their markets itself. Yes, we actually are noticing the missing of some A-listers, but from our countries, yes, there is always a representation, barring Russia. From India's side, there's a Commerce Minister, Piyush Goyal, and Petroleum Minister and the Health Minister. They are all here. So countries are here in full force. As far as big leaders are concerned, last time we were here in 2020, Donald Trump, the president of US, was here in person, and other president and dignitaries and the high leaders at the high level, they were all here. This time also they are here, but yeah, nothing compared to what Donald Trump and the overall those elite brought that time. But German Chancellor is going to be here, and again it's more of an economic thing. So top ranked CEOs from India to other parts of the world, US and UK and other parts of the world, even organizations like IEA, OECD, they are all here. So yes, to some extent it is a bit, we can say that, warm this time. It is not as hot as it is used to be, but a lot of factors are responsible for that. The biggest factor is the dampening of sentiments because of COVID-19. They are still in recovery mode. Many of the markets have crashed. As we know, in India the stock markets have crashed. Many of the companies are struggling. So there was a gloom and doom 2 years ago, and 2 years from them there is a recovery happening. So yes, there is some buzz missing here. Some A-listers are absent, but yes, it still remains the biggest summit on planet currently, where debates, discussions, all these will take place. From Pakistan's side, their foreign minister Bilal Bhutto is going to be here. From many other countries, their big dignitaries are going to be here. They're already here discussing things as we speak now in this Congress hall. The discussions are going on many things. I would like to point out some things which are missing here, though. One theme is cryptocurrency. Last time in 2020 when we were here, cryptocurrency was the in thing. We really thought it is something of future, but today cryptocurrency is not there. So in 2 years flat, everything has changed as far as the world's future is concerned. What the future holds for things like cryptocurrency, it's crashing and it's clearly gone off the radar. Last time in 2020 it was at the mind of people, top of the mind of people. What is cryptocurrency looking like? What is Bitcoin? People were crazy about all those themes. They were talking about those themes. This time there's no theme like that. Coming from the future we were discussing that time to this time, the troubled future, what looks like. So that is discussion going to happen here. These are happening, taking place. Ukraine, Russia is clearly one thing. Inflation, high interest rate, costly crude, all these things are being now discussed here.
Sumit, thank you.
The annual summit of World Economic Forum returns to Davos
as the snow melts in the Alps. The world's biggest business leaders, policymakers, and political leaders gather to brainstorm. economic recovery after the pandemic, the war in Ukraine, and climate change. To top the agenda at the Swiss resort town.
Watch the comprehensive coverage of World Economic Forum Davos 2022 only on WION.
After taking the second largest city of Mariupol, Russia is now targeting the country's eastern region, hoping to capture one of the last major cities there in the key eastern province, which is still under Ukrainian control. These are some of the latest images from Ukraine's Donetsk region. Several of these tanks carrying Russian-backed forces are painted with the letter Z. That is a symbol now heavily associated with the Russian military since the February the 24th invasion of Ukraine. Ukraine's general staff says Russian forces are trying to break through defences. It's thought that the Russians are trying to reach the administrative borders of the Lugansk region. Meanwhile, working on their defences in forested areas of Donbass, soldiers are loading ammunition into self-driving howitzers. They have tanks hidden under camouflage nets and Javelin anti-tank weapons at their disposal, as well as an underground bunker.
Зараз ми знаходимося в резерві, тобто наш підрозділ знаходиться в резерві оперативного з'єднання, тобто ми висуваємося на рубежі або висуваємося на більш нескладні напрямки, які нам поставить командування, тобто затуляємо дірки, можна так сказати.
The Russian Defense Ministry has released video of what it says are self-propelled guns in action. It claims these weapons have destroyed a unit of US howitzers, but the location of this video is being kept undisclosed. Meanwhile, in the Russian-controlled city of Mariupol, Russian soldiers have started demining the Azovstal steel plant. Mines detonated in controlled explosions and debris are being cleared using military bulldozers. Many of the industrial buildings are charred and partially collapsed following Russia's intense campaign in Mariupol.
Today, tonight, we get you all. It's code red for humanity. The alarm bells are deafening. Wildfires, floods, and hurricanes. Extreme climate events warn of impending doom. Is the world heading towards a climate catastrophe? Watch WION's Climate Tracker weekdays at 12 p.m. GMT, 5:30 p.m. IST.
You don't know how to fix the holes in our ozone layer. You don't know how to bring the salmon back up a dead stream. You don't know how to bring back an animal now extinct. And you can't bring back the forest that once grew where there is now a desert.
You have ignored us in the past and you will ignore us again. We have run out of excuses and we are running out of time.
Show us your faithfulness. Show us your trustworthiness. Show us your honesty. Prove us wrong. We desperately need you to prove us wrong. God help us all. If you fail to prove us wrong, God help us.
One trillion species. 7.8 billion humans. 1.9 million species extinct. One planet.
The long-awaited Sue Gray report on the UK's so-called Partygate scandal will likely be out this week. It's expected the document will feature photographs of illegal gatherings. Ahead of its release, there's controversy, though, about a face-to-face meeting between civil servant Sue Gray and Prime Minister Boris Johnson last month. Downing Street has been saying that Sue Gray sought the meeting with Boris Johnson to discuss the process, but her team denies that. And in the last half hour, we've had a clarification on this from Boris Johnson's official spokesperson, who now says that number 10 officials did seek the meeting, but that it was Sue Gray's team that then got in touch to organise it. Well, let's talk to Giles Gibson now, who's joining me live from London. Giles, when it comes to the Sue Gray report and its expected publication this week, how do we expect this week to play out?
Well, Ollie, we understand that this deadline for individuals who are named in this report to raise any objections passed on Sunday evening. So now that is out of the way, really what is happening right now is Sue Gray and her team are sort of dotting the I's, crossing the T's, getting their report ready for publication. And we are really expecting it to land any day now, really, perhaps in the next day or two, or perhaps later on in the week. In her interim reports that Sue Gray put out, she was scathing about the culture within 10 Downing Street. She talked about failures of leadership and judgment. We are expecting a similar tone from this full report when it lands in the next few days or so, but we are expecting it to be different in the sense that it could be much more targeted. That criticism could be much more targeted towards specific individuals. So perhaps Prime Minister Boris Johnson himself, or at least very senior civil servants who are currently working in Downing Street or previously worked as part of the leadership team in Downing Street. Meanwhile, as you were mentioning there, while we wait for this report to land, there is this growing controversy about that meeting that was held between Sue Gray and the Prime Minister Boris Johnson several weeks ago. What we've seen is the opposition, including the opposition Labour Party, really calling out the government about this, saying that it could potentially undermine the independence of Sue Gray and the independence of her investigation. But over the course of the weekend, we had Nadhim Zahawi, the Education Secretary, really doing the rounds, looking to try to control that growing controversy, basically saying that the Prime Minister is not trying to interfere whatsoever into Sue Gray's report and that her investigation will be completely independent.
That's Giles Gibson reporting live from London. Japan is hosting the second Quad Leaders Summit in Tokyo tomorrow. The leaders of all 4 Quad countries have started arriving. India's Prime Minister and the US President are already in the city, and Australia's newly minted and elected Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has taken off after a rushed swearing-in ceremony to get there on time. Hosting them, Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. The bilaterals, diplomacy, business meetings and talks are getting underway as well. Ahead of the summit, the US President has launched an Indo-Pacific economic framework. It details US economic engagement and its plans to do more in Asia. Biden has left it open to the 13 founding countries to work out how to enforce their agreements.
The future of the 21st century economy is going to be largely written in Indo-Pacific, in our region. The Indo-Pacific covers half the population of the world and more than 60% of the global GDP. And the nations represented here today, and those who will join this framework in the future, are signing up to work toward an economic vision that will deliver for all peoples, all our peoples.
The Indo-Pacific region.
The Prime Minister of India has attended the launch event of the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework.
भारत एक इंक्लूसिव और फ्लेक्सिबल इंडो पैसिफिक इकोनॉमिक फ्रेमवर्क के निर्माण के लिए आप सभी के साथ काम करेगा। मेरा मानना है कि हमारे बीच रेजिलिएंट सप्लाई चेन्स के 3 मुख्य आधार होने चाहिए: ट्रस्ट, ट्रांसपेरेंसी एंड टाइमलीनेस.
The Indian Prime Minister will be among one of the first global leaders to meet the new Prime Minister of Australia, Anthony Albanese. He rushed through a swearing-in ceremony to take off for Tokyo, but it remains unclear whether Prime Minister Albanese will form a majority or get the support of crossbenchers.
I, Anthony Norman Albanese.
Australia has a new leader, Anthony Albanese,
I will well and truly serve the Commonwealth,
the 31st Prime Minister of the country, and the first Labour leader to lead Australia after 9 long years. Albanese was sworn in along with the cabinet.
I am incredibly honoured and humbled to have been sworn in as Australia's 31st Prime Minister. Australians have voted for change, and my government intends to implement that change in an orderly way.
The entire makeup of the government is yet to be decided, as some of the votes are still being counted. But the swearing-in ceremony was hurried for a crucial meeting. Why? Because the Quad Security Dialogue in Tokyo. Albanese was sworn in so that he could attend the key meeting along with leaders of Indo-Pacific Alliance in Tokyo.
The relationship with the United States is our most important, along with our relationships in the region and our multilateral commitments as well. So the meetings that we will have, not just with the United States, but importantly with our hosts in Japan and India, are going to be very important in a good way to send a message to the world that there's a new government in Australia, and it's a government that represents a change in terms of the way that we deal with the world on issues like climate change.
The United States, Japan, India and Australia are members of the Quad, an informal group created by Washington, D.C. as a potential bulwark against China and its increasing political, commercial and military activity in the Indo-Pacific. Albanese said that the country's relationship with China would remain a quote-unquote difficult one.
Well, what I have said and we maintain is that the relationship with China will remain a difficult one. I said that before the election. That has not changed. It is China that has changed, not Australia, and Australia should always stand up for our values, and we will in a government that I lead.
These are the top leaders of the Albanese cabinet. Deputy Prime Minister Richard Marles, Foreign Affairs Minister Penny Wong, and Treasurer Jim Chalmers, and Finance Minister Katie Gallagher. All of them were also sworn in to join Albanese on the Quad trip to Tokyo after his return from Japan. Albanese promises to act swift, implement his election promises, set up a national anti-corruption commission and a $10 billion manufacturing fund to diversify Australia's economy.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. See you there.
Australian financial markets offered a muted reaction to the election verdict. The outcome was already priced in, and no radical change in economic course is expected. The swearing in of the full ministry will happen on June 1st. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Harry Styles has become the latest celebrity to show his support for Ukraine amid the ongoing Russian invasion. We'll leave you with those pictures. Thanks very much for watching. I'm Ollie Barrett. I'll be here at the same time tomorrow. Do join us then.
Many other. This is right, Arab.